Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing Friedrich Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra, and we were dealing with the section on gravity, alright? And it's been very witty, insightful, introspective, and I've enjoyed it, and it's, again, exactly on the spirit of gravity. Let's continue. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Such men I call the omni-satisfied. Omni-satisfaction, which knows how to taste everything. That is not the best taste. I honor the recalcitrant, choosy tongues and stomachs, which have learned to say I and yes and no. That's interesting. He says recalcitrant here, and then in the fic book, we just had a whole section on recalcitrants. That's wild. But to chew and digest everything, that is truly the swine's manner. Ooh. Dang, so I like to try new foods. Am I being like a swine? Always to bray, yeah, that only the ass has learned, and whoever is of his spirit. Deep yellow and hot red, thus my taste wants it. It mixes blood into all colors, but whoever whitewashes his house betrays a whitewashed soul to me. Some in love with mummies, the others with ghosts, and both alike enemies of all flesh and blood. Oh, how both offend my taste, for I love blood. So if you have blood, it means you're living. When you look at the mummy, it's like aged, preserved, withered, ghosts, so unattainable, temporal, ephemeral, fleeting, transparent, aloof. And I do not want to reside and abide where every body spits and spews. That happens to be my taste. Rather, I would live even among thieves and perjurers. Nobody has gold in his mouth. Still more revolting, however, I find all lick-spittles. And the most revolting human animal that I found I baptized Parasite. It did not want to love, and yet wanted to live on love. Ooh. So, that's an interesting way to phrase a parasite. Something that doesn't want to love, yet wants to live on love. It's like a one-sided relationship. Curse I call all who have only one choice. So parasite, leech, Curse I call all who have only one choice, to become evil beasts or evil tamers of beasts. Among such men I would not build my home. Curse I call those to who must always wait. They offend my taste. All the publicans and shopkeepers and kings and other land and storekeepers, verily, I too have learned to wait thoroughly, but only to wait for myself. Only to wait for myself. And above all, I learned to stand and walk and run and jump and climb and dance. This, however, is my doctrine. He who would learn to fly one day must first learn to stand and walk and run and climb and dance. One cannot fly into flying. With rope ladders I have learned to climb to many a window. The bird's having a good time. With swift legs I climbed high masts. And to sit on high masts of knowledge seemed to me no small happiness. To flicker like small flames on high masts, a small light only, and yet a great comfort for shipwrecked sailors and castaways. So when the small flame in the distance can really help those who are in dire need. So, a small happiness to you may be a large happiness to someone else. In many ways, I reached my truth. Oh no. My truth. That's not my truth. It was not on one ladder that I climbed to the height where my eyes roam over my distance. And it was only reluctantly that I ever inquire about the way. That always offended my taste. I prefer to question and try out the ways themselves. Trying things out, so some things, yeah, you can try out the path. Others, you should just learn from others' mistakes. You don't need to try it out to make that mistake for yourself. But sometimes you have to learn something hard for yourself, so I can see it from both sides, right? A trying and questioning was my every move. And verily, one must also learn to answer such questioning. That, however, is my taste. Not good, not bad, but my taste of which I am no longer ashamed, and which I have no wish to hide. That is my way. Where is yours? Thus I answered those who ask me the way, for the way that does not exist. Thus spoke Zarathustra. Interesting. So gravity. Very interesting section. Kind of trippy, cryptic, but alright. On old and new tablets, paragraph number 1. Here I sit and wait, surrounded by broken old tablets and new tablets half covered with writing. When will my hour come? The hour of my going down and going under. For I want to go among men once more. For that I am waiting now. For first the signs must come to me that my hour has come. The laughing lion with the flock of doves. Meanwhile, I talk to myself as one who has time. Nobody tells me anything new, so I tell myself. So I tell myself. I talk to myself as one who has time. So it's really just not in a rush, taking the effort, not afraid of approaching one's ideas, and self-soothing. It almost sounds like by talking things out, fleshing out ideas in a very introspective way. Paragraph 2. When I came to men, I found them sitting on an old conceit. The conceit that they have long known what is good and evil for man. All talk of virtue seemed an old and weary matter to man, and whoever wanted to sleep well still talked of good and evil before going to sleep. You can do your remembrances, but talking about like that, someone like me, you go on and on and on, you're going to give yourself insomnia. I think you should try to clear your mind before bed and settle in, because you're going to have some problems. Like, you can just go on and on and on and thinking, and before you know it, an hour's gone by and you're more awake. I disturbed this sleepiness when I taught. What is good and evil, no one knows yet, unless it be he who creates. He, however, creates man's goal and gives the earth its meaning and its future. Well, for us, we know what is good and evil because we've been handed it down, but there are instances where it may be more gray. And then you have to do a lot of reflection. The future of Earth, there's going to be a judgment day, but we don't know what will happen to it after that. Earth's meaning, think it's like a place where you survive and then earn your way into paradise. It's a habitat for us while we go on that journey, and for other creatures in their habitat. And I bade them overthrow their old academic chairs, and wherever that old conceit had sat. I bade them laugh at their great masters of virtue and saints, and poets and world redeemers. See, so he's taking a jab at the Christian conception of Christ the Redeemer, right? Masters, great masters of virtue, so the sages. To laugh at them, that's not a good thing. Quite snarky. I bade them laugh at their gloomy sages. Oh yeah, I was on the right path. And at whoever had at any time sat on the tree of life like a black scarecrow. I sat down by their great tomb, rode among cadavers and vultures, and I laughed at all their past and its rotting, decaying glory. So, the waning of religious majority is kind of just going out of its Renaissance type of feeling. Yeah, that's quite sad. Verily, like preachers of repentance and fools, I raised a hue and cry of wrath over what among them is great and small, and that their best is still so small, and that their greatest evil too is still so small. At that I laughed. So, preachers of repentance. So he groups people who tell you to repent and change your life. He groups them with fools. And then he minimizes what they call evil and also minimizes what they call great. So quite a snarky little guy right here who thinks very high of himself. Now, there was something I learned in anger management called the ripple effect. We toss in a rock and it ripples out. Some evil you see as small can have unforeseen consequences. You know, think about this lady who, she was driving. I remember reading this sad news story. She was drunk. She crashed into a family where there was a child in the back and the woman was pregnant. She was with her husband. The entire family died. That woman probably thought, it's no big deal to drink. Like the next step, it's no big deal to drive while drunk and speed. Crash and kill the whole family. So, you gotta be careful. Like people who do credit card theft and crimes. To you, as the criminal, you maybe think, oh, who cares? The bank will just do this or that. But that person may have had to go miss work, settle things out with the bank. You know, there might have been an emergency and then they weren't able to use their card at the time. A mess. Not only the scar of that. So, if someone's greatest evil, if you see it as not a great evil, you know, that shows that maybe you're not the best person in the world. Because sometimes you can say it's not that big of a deal, and other times you don't really have a right to tell someone how to respond if you've done something horrible to them. Right? You don't get to minimize their suffering because it inconveniences your ego. My wise longing cried, and laughed thus out of me. Born in the mountains, verily a wild wisdom, my great broad-winged longing, and often it swept me away, and up and far in the middle of my laughter. And I flew quivering an arrow through sun-drunken light. Well, this whole thing, like, my laughter, I laughed. Who gets the last laugh? Watch who you laughing at. You know, so I would say. Sun-drunken light, away into distant futures which no dream had yet seen. into hotter south than artists ever dreamed of, where gods in their dances are ashamed of all clothes. Ew. See, that's this type of hedonistic perversion, pagan crap. It's like, nudity isn't godly. I just don't see, you're born nude, and you start shivering. Oh, I need to cover up. It's just revolting. The thing about nudity is, when it's a woman who looks nice or a man who looks nice, you're like, hey. But then once you become a parent and you care about what kids see, you're like, cover up, put that stuff away. And how many women don't want to see their husband gawking at someone who has better assets than them? You know, it's disgusting. And when you see some, like, these nudist beaches, you're like, that should not be allowed to exist. And those people are disgusting and degenerates. So, I think it's pious to cloak and cover and not burden people's vision with your dangly bits, your wrinkles, your imperfections, your cellulite. It's just not necessary. It's just not necessary. To speak in parables and to limp and stammer like poets. And verily, I am ashamed that I must still be a poet. Ashamed that yes, will still be a poet. Why? Where all becoming seemed to me the dance of gods and the prankishness of gods. This seems like a Greek thing, like the prankishness. And the world seemed free of frolicsome and as if fleeting back to itself. If you think the world is just like prancing, frolicking, it's just not real. The gazelle bounces, but the speed of the gazelle is a utility to escape death. You know, a goat will do a little jig, you know, but in the end, those jumping skills are useful, so they can hop over fences and climb up trees. Then birds that do their dancing, there's spiders that do a dance. That's a mating strategy. But humans, children can frolic and play when there's peace, but if you're an adult frolicking, I'd say you should be doing more productive things. Earth is a place filled with violent weather, earthquakes. I mean, it's a dark world. And as if fleeing back to itself, as an eternal fleeing and seeking each other again of many gods, as the happy controverting of each other, conversing again with each other, and converging again of many gods. So this polytheism here is pathetic. So he's definitely taking a stab at the monotheists. Where all time seemed to me a happy mockery of moments, where necessity was freedom itself, playing happily with the sting of freedom. Necessity was freedom. Freedom itself playing happily with the sting of freedom. So freedom playing with the sting of freedom. So freedom is a responsibility, you know. You have to really be tense in that. You have to watch out for that. You have to be mindful. You're free to choose, but you're not free from the consequences of those actions. Where I also found again my old devil and arch enemy, the spirit of gravity. So I'm gonna hold you down, ground you. You can't just float like you're on the moon. And all that he created, constraint, statue, necessity, and consequence, and purpose, and will, and good and evil. For must there not be that over which one dances, or dances away, for the sake of the light and the lightest? Must there not be moles and grave dwarfs? feel like this is like, what was he drinking? There it was too that I picked up the word overman, by the way, and that man is something that must be overcome. That man is a bridge and no end, proclaiming himself blessed in view of his noon and evening, as the way to new dawns, Zarathustra's word of the great noon, and whatever else I hung up over man, like the last crimson light of evening. So, no end. So you don't really know where your end is. Man is a bridge. Opportunities. But a bridge goes both ways, doesn't it? A bridge goes both ways. And there's a toll on some bridges. Verily, I also let them see new stars, along with new nights. And over clouds and day and night I still spread out laughter as a colorful tent. I taught them all my creating and striving to create and carry together into one what in man is fragment and riddle and dreadful accident. As creator, guesser of riddles and redeemer of accidents, I taught them to work on the future and to redeem with their creation all that has been. So, kind of synthesizing, it sounds like here. Fixing mistakes, looking at the perplexity and mystery of accidents, how to overcome trauma. That's what it sounds like to me. To redeem what is past in man and to recreate all it was until the will says, thus I willed it, thus I shall will it. This I called redemption. And this alone I taught them to call redemption. Now I wait for my own redemption, that I may go to them for the last time. For I want to go to men once more, under their eyes. I want to go under, dying. I want to give them my richest gift. From the sun I learned this. When he goes down over rich, he pours gold into the sea, out of inexhaustible riches, so that even the poorest fisherman still rows with golden oars. So, the sun, kind of feels like it's something that can't be exhausted. That's how it kind of seems to us in this perplexing way. The sun as a resource, solar panels. When the sun is still out, you can keep on doing what you have to do with your duties. For this I once saw, and did not tire of my tears as I watched it. The richest gift. Like the sun, Zarathustra too wants to go under. Now he sits here and waits, surrounded by broken old tablets and new tablets half covered with writing. So, broken old tablets, traditions being changed, new tablets, so reforms that haven't been fully actualized. Paragraph 4. Behold, here is a new tablet. But where are my brothers to carry it down with me to the valley and into the hearts of flesh? Sounds like this is a Moses coming. He's kind of doing something similar to what Moses did. Thus my great love and great love of the farthest demands it. Do not spare your neighbor. Man is something that must be overcome. Man is something that must be overcome. So, can you overcome opinions of others? But can you overcome shame? Can you overcome your ego? Can you reduce something, reform something, apply, establish, reprimand, incorporate? There are many ways of overcoming. See to that yourself. But Only a jester thinks man can also be skipped over. So overcome versus skipped over. Overcome yourself, even in your neighbor, and a right that you can rob you should not accept as a gift. That's a terrible thing. What you could rob, you shouldn't accept as a gift. So if you were able to steal a pack of gum, should you not be thankful when someone brings you a nice pack of gum? What's going on here? What are we talking about? What you do, nobody can do to you in turn. Ooh, it's not true. That's not true. Behold, there is no retribution. So what you do, nobody can do to you in return. So if you insult yourself, nobody can insult you. Sounds like something Tyrion said. Like, if you're a bastard, if he's talking to Jon Snow, I remember. No one, like, what does he say? Like, all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes. He says something to Jon about, like, to know who you are and no one can use it against you and it won't hurt. But I just don't see the utility of that. I see it as futile. So if you love yourself, nobody can do it to you. If you hate yourself, nobody can hate you in turn. You see, some of these, that little paradox, it sounds good, but I feel like you can go down the rabbit hole and really see that doesn't make a lot of sense. He who cannot command himself should obey. Now that I like. Oh yeah. He who cannot command himself should obey. So to command yourself, are you in control of your faculties? Are you able to channel your emotions in an effective manner, self-regulate, maintain composure? Are you addicted to something? You can't command yourself out of that addiction, You're failing. And many can command themselves, but much is still lacking before they also obey themselves. Ooh, obey themselves. That's an interesting one. You're like, I want to quit this, but you literally feel in your bones like you can't. You're not obeying yourself. Yeah, something. Paragraph 5. This is the manner of noble souls. They do not want to have anything for nothing, least of all life. Whoever is of the mob wants to live for nothing. We others, however, to whom life gave itself, we always think about what we might best give in return. And verily, that is a noble speech which says, what life promises us, we ourselves want to keep to life. One shall not wish to enjoy where one does not give joy. So let's read that again. You don't wish to enjoy where one does not give joy. So if it's not the environment where you can give joy, maybe you can't find joy there. And one shall not wish to enjoy, for enjoyment and innocence are the most bashful things. Both do not want to be sought. One shall possess them, but rather seek even guilt and suffering. For enjoyment and innocence are the most bashful things. Are you enjoying yourself when your face turns red? And when you're innocent of something, you little blush. I can see that point. Paragraph 6. My brothers, the firstling is always sacrificed. We, however, are firstlings. All of us bleed at secret sacrificial altars. All of us burn and roast in honor of old idols. Roast in honor of old idols. Now, he was talking about the gods, this frolicking, when if you think about the idols of the pagans and, you know, especially the pagan Romans and Greeks, those were some idols. And, I mean, there are some who literally burnt people to idols. But I get he means that a lifestyle is hard on the soul and it's a heavy burden because you're living in a society that has old relics of traditions that no longer matter. Makes me think about, in another sense, how there's a hadith that talks about, you know, holding on to your religion will be like holding on to a hot coal. I'm summarizing it. But you have your honor of your religion and you're holding on to it in a very pagan world. It can be hard. It makes me think of the other hadith that says, you know, earth is the infidel's Jannah and the believer's prison. What is best in us is still young, that attracts old palates. Our flesh is tender, our hide is a mere lambskin. How could we fail to attract old idol priests? Even in ourselves the old idol priest still lives, who roasts what is best in us for his feasts. Alas, my brothers, how could firstlings fail to be sacrificed? So, makes me think about your first child, like they go through your whole parenthood journey for the first time, you know. With your first kid, everything is so unknown, unfamiliar. Your second, third, fourth, you're getting the hang of things. But your first is like, they capture a lot of your mistakes. And some people, even most of your love. So, your firstborn, there's something to that. And wasn't it in Egypt when the plagues were happening by Jehovah in the Christian Bible? They had to put the lamb's blood on the door, otherwise the firstborn child would be smited. And so there was a great cry in Egypt because of how many firstborns were taken, sacrificed for the Pharaoh's ego, his stubbornness and pride, and ability to change his ways. You know, and if you think in a fictional example, Melisandre told Stannis Baratheon to sacrifice his firstborn daughter. On the Iliad, Melanidas, I forget his name. He sacrificed his daughter. So the firstborns, there's a lot about it. Firstborn son inheriting, firstborn daughter. Paragraphs, hold on. But thus our kind wants it, and I love those who do not want to preserve themselves. Well, that's ridiculous. So, recklessness? If you're walking on the razor's edge and you're not trying to preserve yourself, you're reckless and foolish. You're a moron. Self-preservation is the key to survival. If you're not trying to preserve yourself, you're trying to wreck yourself. And if you're trying to wreck yourself, you have no common sense. Those who are going under I love with my whole love, for they cross over. So, when you pray and supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for food, shelter, you're praying to preserve yourself. And you want to preserve your honor, you want to preserve yourself from deadly mistakes, preserve yourself from the evil eye. You're cautionary when you're trying to preserve yourself. When you're just overly bold in terms of not taking countenance, not taking measures, not looking at the pros and cons, not being calculating, you're an imbecile. So I don't get what he means by that. Paragraph 7. To be true, only a few are able, and those who are still lack the will. But the good have this ability, least of all. Oh, these good men never speak the truth, for the spirit to be good in this way is a disease. Good men never speak the truth. So this makes me think about like corporate lifestyle. Like if you're trying to look really polished, you're trying to look like you're perfect, squeaky clean, you won't say a bitter truth. So this makes me think of a bitter truth, an ugly truth. So truth in and of itself, right? It's not always going to be flowers and ease. So people who are always trying to appear to be the socially good person may not tell you something because you'll feel like, oh, this is an attack, you're judging me, when really you're trying to give them admonitions. So they're conflict avergent because they always want to be a people pleaser. But on the other hand, those who tell truth to power can be said to be good people, but they just have to have the tact for how it's done. For the spirit to be good in this way is a disease. They give in, these good men, they give themselves up. Their heart repeats and their ground obeys. But whoever heeds commands does not heed himself. But whoever heeds commands does not heed himself. Depends on the command. Because you gotta check yourself before you wreck yourself. And sometimes if you submit to someone else's authority, you are actually looking out for yourself because you realize they had more wisdom than you on something. Everything that the good call evil must come together, so that one truth may be born. Oh, my brothers, are you evil enough for this truth? The audacious daring, the long mistrust, the cruel no, the disgust, the cutting into the living, how rarely does all this come together, but from such seed is truth begotten. Alongside the bad conscience, all science has grown so far. Break, break, you lovers of knowledge, the old tablets. So, kind of just saying like, hey, you have to be able to go to charts. You have to be able to go to parts unknown. But I think it depends on the field you're talking about. You know, every innovation is misguidance. But some things like conventional wisdoms can be like, hey, we used to think this and then we found out it was this. Knowledge can help you erase other lesser forms of knowledge. So I guess it really depends on the path that you're going. When it says here, when he writes that the good call evil has to come together so that the one truth may be born, bring it together to see, you know, where there's a truth at, to examine it. But you should be very careful of minimizing what one calls evil. So Nietzsche, he's got some skeletons in his closet. He really disliked religion, Christianity in particular. So it really does come out in his fanciful writing here. Old idle priests. He who cannot command himself should obey. That's a potent one. What do you think? Please let me know. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Share if you can. And if you'd like to support my channel and read more about what I write, you can go to my blog, which is www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Hope to see you there.